first thing is, for all of the fires, they haven't been able to determine what ignited the fires.
Conspiracy theorists go viral with claim space lasers are to blame for Hawaii fires.
The governor there even saying that it looked like a bomb went off.
Directed energy weapon systems is something that people need to get in their vocabulary fast.
We want to use the crisis, as many do, as a catalyst to improving the adaptability of our city by going to the next level.
Welcome or welcome back to the show. I'm Anna and you're watching Anna Speaks Out. Thanks for being here.
Images of an island paradise, palm trees, sailboats, buildings, all up in flames.
They're continuing to follow breaking news in Hawaii.
It barely began the process for looking for survivors here. The devastation is overwhelming. The governor there even saying that it looked like a bomb went off.
And officials say they do expect that death toll to rise.
Yeah, Kara, and this morning we know that 55 people have died in this fire.
When you ask Google what caused the fires in Maui, the New York Times, CBS News, Time.com, etc., all report that it was a combination of Maui's dry conditions, low humidity, and strong trade winds. They'll also mention Hurricane Dora. However, as CBS News also states, they don't know what actually ignited the fires. This actually reminds me of the theory of evolution, because they can supposedly tell you about how everything perpetuated and kept on going, but they can't tell you what actually initiated any of it to begin with, which is pretty suspect if you ask me. That apparently the only explanation that they can give is vague statements about climate change causing precarious conditions that could supposedly end up in wildfires. As you saw in the intro of this video, there is another theory that has been going around though, which I am tending to lean more towards being a possibility. First of all, were you aware that several months ago there were green laser beams seen in the sky over Hawaii?
Beams of green light flashing above Mauna Kea are likely from a Chinese satellite. Now, these are shots from the Subaru telescope late last month. The scientists there originally thought they were from a NASA satellite making a 3D map of the Earth. But then their NASA colleagues told them the lights match the pattern of a Chinese satellite that does the same thing.
Let's check out a portion of a clip from the Sean Ryan show that I played in a recent video.
Eric Hecker.
Sean.
Welcome to the show, brother. Just a little intro on you. So you were a contractor for Raytheon, how would you describe Raytheon?
I would say that Raytheon is a military-industrial contractor that normally is making weapons and targeting systems for the military, and oddly enough had a contract to provide JANO services at the South Pole Station.
Interesting. From 2010 to 2011, you were a tradesman and firefighter on the South Pole. Antarctica is a contractor for Raytheon. You spent 366 continuous days at the South Pole.
There are technologies at the South Pole Station that people can't even consider that exist on this planet.
Like what?
Directed energy weapon systems is something that people need to get in their vocabulary fast. The Atmospheric Research Observatory, as I testified in DC, I witnessed myself in doing my standard rounds in the winter season at South Pole Station, that building would, with great regularity, have a very powerful green laser beam shooting out of it into the cosmos. I believe through other things that I've located there, which is the chilled helium in a massive amount. It is chilled down to 4 degrees Kelvin in storage, which my understanding, this is something new that I'm learning about, it's called superfluids. Superfluids act very differently than other things in our scientific spectrum and are used for things called chemical lasers. Well, we had a superfluid and we had a laser. So I believe that what I'm learning on this is that it was probably a secondary means of long-range communication and or another weapons platform.
According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office, In an article published in May of 2023, directed energy weapons, such as lasers, use energy fired at the speed of light. These weapons can produce force that ranges from deterrent to damaging to destructive. A few months before these fires occurred in Maui, this article said many countries, including the US, are researching their use. And this was a couple months after those green laser beams were seen in the sky in Hawaii. Why now, they ask. Why now, they ask. Directed energy weapon research and development has been ongoing for decades in many countries, including the US, and is currently experiencing a surge worldwide, and there have been fires all over the world. This surge stems in part from advances in technology and a desire to maintain competitiveness on the battlefield. Northrop Grumman, or however it's pronounced, a company that develops high-energy laser solutions to defend our nation at sea, on land, and in the air, boasts about their machines' advanced targeting and tracking using machine learning. And people have been mentioning that they find it interesting that so many trees have been left over in the aftermath of these fires on Maui. It almost looks as if the buildings were almost targeted and the trees were ignored. It is also definitely of interest that all of these celebrities that you see here have property on Maui, so really they own huge portions of the island. And apparently, as far as we've seen so far, the only one of their properties that was destroyed was Fleetwood Mac's restaurant. So at this point, you are probably asking yourself, okay, so if there was some type of sinister motive behind this terrible atrocity that just occurred in Maui, what was it? Why would anybody purposely cause this to happen? For at least the past few years, Hawaii has been talking about being the first state in the nation to be the most progressive when it comes to global climate change initiatives. And now that this disaster has occurred, the celebrity billionaires whose properties somehow didn't get destroyed seem excited to help rebuild from scratch.
And a shout out, of course, to some well-known folks who have ties to the island. Oprah Winfrey handed out pillows and other supplies to people at a shelter. She owns roughly 2,000 acres here on Maui.
It is amazing how people are stepping up, and Amazon's Jeff Bezos and fiancée Lauren Sanchez are establishing a $100 million fund to help Maui get back on its feet and in the coming years, because it almost certainly will take years to rebuild.
Here's my guess as to what they might be about to rebuild Maui into.
My name is Carlo Ratti. I'm professor at MIT. We run a lab called Sensible City Lab. Let's take a few minutes to talk about the 15-minute city. A 15-minute city is based on the idea that we can build neighborhoods where everything we need, or most of the things we need in our lives, can be reached very quickly. You can describe it as an isochrone. An isochrone is an area that you can reach within, as the name says, within 15 minutes in this case. And so you can think about the city as kind of a fractal organism where you've got different neighborhoods, 15-minute neighborhoods that together piece together a bigger city as a fractal, again, in a fractal way. Now, the 15-minute city has been discussed a lot. It's been followed in many cities. It is a principle. It's been now followed in many planning initiatives around the planet. Sally, Lord Mayor of Melbourne, as I said, looking at neighborhood, 20-minute neighborhoods, and again, similar principles of what we're discussing today. So perhaps could elaborate on that.
We've been very thoughtful and deliberate about the way that we design our city spaces to drive aspirational economic, social and environmental outcomes for our community. We do prioritise active and public transport infrastructure so that people can easily walk or catch public transport to the services they need to work and, of course, to recreation. And we note that about 90% of the trips done around our CBD are done by foot. We cherish unique local character and really do our best to make sure that we've promoted local economies and support them to flourish. And we like to plot adaptability and sustainability into every decision we make. And we were the first city in Australia to pledge to report our progress against the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We know that the COVID COVID crisis has impacted many cities and their ability to keep driving those goals forward. But we want to use the crisis, as many do, as a catalyst to improving the adaptability of our city by going to the next level and planning for each of our neighbourhoods to be very distinctive in their 20-minute identity.
And wouldn't it just be absolutely perfect if they could do away with all of the original history of Hawaii and really start fresh?
And while people are grateful for all of these contributions, one of the challenges here is, yes, you can rebuild buildings, but how do you rebuild history and tradition? Historic Lahaina Town was a place where all of that was preserved, and so people are worried about what's next and how do you put all that together.
Yeah, that's right. It was once the royal capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom. So important.
And emphasizing major challenges still lie ahead.
This actually reminds me of how when the crisis that was the summer of 2020 BLM riots occurred, there were historical monuments that were torn down and replaced with monuments of the violent thug George Floyd. Thank you again so much for being here today. Since you liked the video enough to make it all the way to the end, don't forget to click the thumbs up and share with somebody else who would also find it interesting. Leave your comments below and we'll all have a conversation. And if you really enjoyed it, check out the description for several different ways that you can support. Have a wonderful night, afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time zone you are in, and I will see you next time. Bye.